So anytime we're talking about, these soul groups or whatever it is on that level, we're treating a system as if it's one entity. And that overall entity in and of itself will have like an intention, oftentimes, or a purpose, the same as a human would have.
That just spontaneously arrives? Is this some agreement before you incarnate?
Oh, it's always an agreement. When we're talking about soul families and all these types of it's always before you came in.
What does that look like?
The process of deciding things before you come into this life?
Yeah.
Oh, it's very difficult for a human mind. I'm going to try to get you as close as I can because, see, one thing we have to understand is that the human mind has its limits, and it was actually designed to have its limits. Like, it was designed to plug into the physical time-space reality in a very specific way because that perception benefits it. But of course, there's like a downside to that, which is it's very difficult for a human mind, for example, that is designed to perceive time, which is a linearity, to understand the concept of there is no linear anything in the universe. See, that's hard. Like, I can talk about it as a concept, but it's very hard to kind of...
Yeah.
And that experience before coming into this life is the same thing. Because when you die, the stream of energy, which you have identified as yourself, it withdraws from the physical, and it also withdraws from what we would call a thought form, so that now it is essentially part of this source construct again, and so it is in this incredibly objective perspective. And I'm not going to be able to get a person with a human brain translating this experience to understand what the objective perspective of source is like. I can just get us close, because from that place there is no identification like you experience it today. And from that perspective, you're not limited like we are limited down here by the human mind. So you can look at all of these time, space, reality potentials as a result of going into anything. So it gets as complicated as, let's say that you're looking at your mother and she has 45 viable eggs. Like, you're going to be doing this for like multiple parents at the same time. But just to like blow your mind, let's say that you decide to zoom in on just one woman. You're looking at 45 viable eggs, meaning that the only potentials that exist in her life with a partner is that there's only 45 eggs that will potentially be fertilized in this woman's lifetime. You're looking literally at what one of those 45 potentials are, and what all the potentials branching off from that partner which she would be a match to at that particular time would be, to look at what experience that gives rise to in your life. And I'm just talking about that process of fertilization. Not any other experience she goes through in her life, not the impact or the changes that will be made by virtue of you coming into her body. You can look at all of it at the same time. It's more like a computer just, downloading.
What dimension is that?
Usually when we're looking at those types of potentials, we're more engaging like at the 9th dimensional frequency rather than 11th or 12th. Yeah. I mean,
is it...
It's just so complicated. I mean, what we are doing.
I get what you're saying.
Okay.
I get what you're saying, and I'm just curious. I mean, I've had someone explain to me, time dimensions, and just essentially, well, actually, maybe just explain dimensions. I feel like this is, people hear about, 3D, 4D, 5D, but like, is there a way that you can kind of lay out, and how many are there?
There are 12. Ultimately in this universe, and that 12th dimension is where essentially everything is one again. What's important to know, it's not really important to know what is at each dimension for a person. What's important to know is that how these different dimensional frequencies work is like a massive version of that aperture or telescope difference that I'm talking to you about. It's like at these different levels there is a completely different perceptual reality and different laws that apply. For example, in our time-space reality, in the physical dimension, you really are tied to this one incarnation, and you will experience the progression over the timeline of your one incarnation. Once we get up to the 4th and 5th dimension, 5th dimension is really where this falls apart. Once you get into the 5th dimension, the concept of time falls apart, and all of a sudden you have access suddenly. You're still in your own personal timeline, meaning teal, right, in this incarnation. However, you're not limited according to one linear timeline based off of where you are. You can switch. So the way that the 5th dimension works more like is what you see in Back to the Future. Only you don't need a car for it. It's that like literally you can go back in time and you can make a different choice and experience a whole different timeline simultaneously. So you get to pick your
With
inflection
awareness?
points. Yes.
With awareness.
With awareness. So you get to pick your inflection points.
Wow.
Yeah. So like, I mean, there's all, I mean, this is the thing, like I could, for all these different dimensions, there's all these different properties that come with that. But what's important for a person who's on the path of spirituality is to understand that accessing these different, you know, these different frequencies of awareness, which is ultimately what it is the capacity to access information at a different, or not just information, experiences and different laws that exist at these different levels. You know, so it's like the limitation goes sort of down, 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 the further up you go. And then but you start to see the value in the sort of we call it focus. So here we experience it as a limitation. From the higher dimensionals looking down, we experience that as you choosing a specific focus for a reason. Which is really fabulous.
Yeah,